I tell a lot of people, especially I love talking to founders who are just starting their businesses, because I'm like, oh my God, like learn from my mistakes, like just do this course, educate yourself, because the number of people I talk to that don't know how Facebook works or how digital marketing works. And I'm like, you're already setting yourself up for failure. I think like the first day we launched the campaign, I spent $100 that day. And I immediately saw like a 13x, which I was like, this is insane. Like I've never seen a 13x in my life. Like I didn't even know that existed anymore. Now that was spending $100 a day, which like is pretty low. But I was like, oh my God, like if it can do 13 at 100, chances are it can be in our sweet spot if we're spending 1,000. So we just tested that theory by increasing that every day. We went from spending in January about $200 a day, I think, just in the US. And now we're spending like over 1,000 a day in the US, and that ROAS is maintained. So like, that's huge for us. So yeah, we're definitely going to hit the million. I think we'll probably do more this year, but yeah, we basically doubled, like we doubled this month what we did on Black Friday. So that was like a pretty big moment. And also like, I'm one of those obsessive people that has this stupid Shopify app on my phone. It's like, I'm constantly getting the email alerts. So like, there are days where it's like the pop-up comes up with sales. I mean, at one point I had a cha-ching, I had the sound on, it was so bad. My husband finally was like, you need to stop. Like, I'm going to divorce you if I keep hearing this. Because then there'd be days where I'm like, I haven't heard a cha-ching. What's happening? Yeah. And then anyway, so I turned that off. But I still get the alerts on my phone. Like I'm such a masochist. But anyway, it's, those days where it's like, my God, we're doing like our average daily is like 2,600 US, which is like crazy. Like we were doing, 500 a day was like a good day, a year ago. So it's, it's those little moments where you're like, oh, wow, something's actually working. Cause it's when you're just throwing crap in so many different directions, like it's, you don't often I just hadn't up to that point really seen one thing work. That was very clear. It was like, oh, this is working. I can now isolate it. It is this exact thing. And this is how we can take advantage of that. The only other time, was like, we had an influencer post once where we did like a really big volume of sales in 2 days, but then that dies, right? And then it's like, okay, that was over. And then you try to do it again. It's like, oh, it wasn't as good. And then move on. And it was the creative component that just transformed the ads that we were running. And suddenly, we went from seeing like 0.6 ROAS to suddenly it's like, oh my gosh, like this has a 3.5, this has a 4, spending $80 a day. Like, what if we doubled that spend? Like, or what if and I just basically the last 3 months since January, once we got those initial ads out with that really high return on spend right away, we just started increasing every day, like $20, $20, $20. And eventually we've like almost quadrupled our ad spend in the last 3 months. And our return on ad spend has maintained like strength. So that's really what we've done. It's like, we've kind of just accepted also the fact that like we were able to like double the improvement of our CPA. Like I was in like hundreds of dollars CPA like last year, really. And honestly, I would say like there's been a lot of factors, but I really think it's like the creative messaging piece is so important. Thinking about how to stand out in the noise. And then again, being so focused on creating that really solid, like tight pipe for that person, like very like focused, like here's what you need to buy, here's the journey, refining that versus kind of like here's the journey, and like you can go here and go there and maybe you can buy this, maybe you can buy that, and like not really have like a really strong like here's why you need this, here's how to buy it, click buy. And I think like the great thing about the course too is there's people of different stages, people that can extract different value out of it. And like, there's some people that are brand new that have never started a business before that like, they should do it front to cover. And like, it would be hugely, hugely valuable, like for them, like to do like literally every piece of the pipeline along the way, the whole course. And then other people like us, where we were like a little bit further along, but like really needed help on some very, very key things. And we were able to like hone in on like what those were. And even just the process of discovering where the holes were, showing him, Daryl the compass, and being able to isolate like, okay, these are your problem columns. It's your cost per click. It's this, which means you're creative, or which means So, and he's like, you're doing a lot of things right, but you're just doing some key things very wrong. So that in itself is so valuable to see. Last year, like we just finished out sub $1 million in sales at the end of last year, which is our second year of being in business. We were doing on average, like big fluctuations last year because again, we were so new and like some months had big spikes for certain reasons, but like Black Friday, like November of last year was our biggest month of last year. And we did 57,000 US in sales on our website. And then this February, yeah, we exceeded that. I think we did like 65. And then this month we did 85. So, that was like Q4 Black Friday, like our whole website was on sale, 20% off. We were like pumping out ads. It was like, the machine was running. And then in February, a totally non-promotional month, technically like one of the worst months of the year for buying. And we exceeded our Black Friday by a significant amount. And then last month, yeah, we just headed out of the park. First thing I did was really start to figure out and educate myself on how it all worked, because even if you are working with an agency partner and even if it's going well, like if you don't understand the ins and outs and the fundamentals, like you're setting yourself up for failure. And anyway, so I quickly realized I needed to really learn my stuff. And this was even before I joined the course. This was just like, I need to have basic understanding. And then as I developed more understanding, I started to notice like all the holes and all the gaps in the strategy and the fact that they weren't actually really managing the budgets very well. And the creative wasn't hitting. And we basically like just spun our wheels for a year and a half. And like, we just couldn't get beyond a certain cost per acquisition. And we really just couldn't scale beyond like a certain spend a month. And every time we increased the spend, our ROAS went down. Like I was like transparently hovering at like sub 1 ROAS for like an entire year, which, for some brands at a certain time is okay if it fits that like grow at all cost strategy where you can go back out to the market and get more capital. And like, if you can show stickiness and like, there's a strategy to be had there. If that's your like, everyone is different, but it certainly wasn't a strategy for growing like a good, profitable business out of the gate that like, was going to be a good story to then go back to investors with. That was actually like a big realization when I left the agency that I was with. And I'd worked with a few people. Like I had worked with like a few different ad buyers. And then and then in last fall, I was like, the ticket is going to be this agency. I'm going to like spend, $6,000 a month and they're going to change my life, which was obviously super naive. But when I left them, I looked into my ad account, having been through the course for a couple of months, and was like way more educated. And I was like, wow, they were just burning through my money. They were setting the budgets. I wasn't really like close enough to really monitor them and their success and their performance. And like, you're literally just burning money when you're doing that. Like it's bad. It's a hard lesson to learn. Whereas now, like every day I'm adjusting, like I'm in there every day and I'm using the tracker and I'm using the compass. Like that alone, that part of the course alone, I think it's amazing that so many business owners, and it's not their fault. Like I was this way too, like don't actually understand like the economics of what they're doing. And like having that clarity of like, here are your 3 big buckets you need to be looking at from a unit economic standpoint. Like you need to understand what your CPA needs to be in order to grow your business. You need to understand like what your based on your margin, all that stuff. And then the compass tracker, like just seeing it every day. I update my tracker every day. Like a lot of people do monthly, like they look at the end of the month and I'm like, when you can manipulate your budgets every day, like you have to be able to monitor every day. Like there's not a day goes by where I don't look at our numbers. I talk to a lot of founders in Canada. I have like a really great group of us. Most of them are doing your course now. Referred like 7 people. So I should be getting a kickback. No, but I did say to Daryl, I was like, I want to have like a lifetime access to the course. Is that okay? No, but because I'm taking a long time to do it. And like, I want to immerse, like I want to learn it all, but I just haven't had time to do it all quickly.
We can talk.
Anyway,
we can talk.
Yeah, but I say to them, I'm like, if I could do it all, because I often get asked to, like, I do podcasts and like interviews here and there, not really, I'm like, not a big deal, but occasionally I'll do a business podcast and they'll say like, what are your lessons that you've learned or whatever. And I always say like, if I could do it all again, like I wouldn't have raised money. I would have, well, I maybe would have raised a little bit to like help get, that first inventory run, but not like really more than what I really needed. And I would have taken this course and I would have like built from the ground up, like from a way more solid foundation. Versus kind of like, I feel like we're just a case of, obviously we weren't reckless with our dollars, like we certainly weren't, but we were going after a strategy that just doesn't really apply anymore. It's like, and also like chasing the shiny objects. That is another thing that's like really resonating whenever I talk to my founder friends too. I'm always like, we're just chasing shiny objects. It's like, we need to do affiliate marketing. We need to do influencer. We need to do Facebook. We need to make more products. We need to like do PR. And it's like, you end up spending your money so quickly and you spread it so thin. And like the ROI is just not there ultimately. And you're better to like, if I could do it again, like I would again, like focus on one channel. Once that's working and we know that we have the budget, we build in another channel and you just do it methodically. And it's like just a more methodical approach. Whereas like, I think we're all looking for a quick fix. We're either looking for that person to help us change our business, or we're looking for that like one influencer post or like whatever it is, or one press piece. And like, it's often not it often isn't what you expect. I'm definitely a skeptic. And I think actually going into this course, I feel like I had been beaten up a bit. Like I had put my faith in a lot of people. I had like drunk the Kool-Aid of what was offered to me and I was disappointed by it. And I think I almost like felt like this was like my last straw. I was like, okay, I'm going to give this a go. And if it doesn't work, then like we either have to like completely change the strategy, like, we would have to make some like really big business changes. Obviously I wasn't ready to like fold or anything. Like I'm in this for the long run, but it was like, okay, we've really got to rethink digital if this doesn't work. So I totally relate to the skepticism, I would say. And what I tell my friends who I talk to, it's like, yeah, it's like sometimes you have to take a leap of faith. And I think what I love about this is it gives you the tools. It's not a quick fix. It's not like we will hear the results. If you pay X, this will be the result. It's not actually that. It's like, we're going to give you the tools. And if you immerse yourself and you get into the right mindset and you just trust and have faith in the process and really just like lean into it, you will see the results. And that's what I say to everyone. Cause like all my friends are very skeptical. They're like, what is this course? Like, it looks like a cult. Like I always say, I'm like, it's kind of a cult, but, but like, I'm always like, that they get targeted by your ads and they're like, what's happening? I'm like, trust me. Like, I mean, your ads are like very powerful, by the way. Oh my God. They like literally speak to every founder out there. But, yeah, I just say like, it is ultimately though, it's on your shoulders to like take the information and do with it what you need to do to make it successful. They're not going to like be that quick fix, but if you just believe and have faith, whereas, when you take a leap of faith on a person or on an agency more specifically, like you don't have control really over what they're doing. Like you're still like, you're giving them the keys, and that's like way more risky than like, I think with the course where you're just like, you're gaining tools, you're gaining knowledge, you're only just going to get smarter. The worst thing that can happen is that you go through the course and like, you just learn, like you learn so much. And then maybe you still want to outsource. You still feel maybe there's like a bigger business problem. Like maybe it doesn't work, like I'm sure there are cases where it's like, but if you really just follow it and believe and trust and like implement what's being told, like you will see results. You will. I mean, it's like, and yeah. And I think like a lot of founders right now, specifically at this time where like raising money is harder, and it's not like the pre-iOS like fun fest anymore. I think, people like, I think they're willing to take that leap of faith. They're like, well, I mean, I got to do something. I got to take control. So this should be it. And, anyway, so I think that's why a lot of the people that I know are jumping on board, and they're seeing the results that we're getting in there. That helps. I think your testimonials were also really powerful. Everyone's at a different stage and like, it's all relative, like, but just to see the volume, the number of people that have had the results they've had, like that was enough to convince me. And I think, yeah, again, like if you follow it, you got to trust, you got to get in the mindset though. Like if you go into it skeptical, like you can be skeptical, like as you're like just signing on and like paying the money. And then you're like, okay, I've done that. Now it's like, okay, I'm brain shift. Like I'm going to like do this and I'm going to believe. And yeah, makes all the difference. It gives you hope because like as founders, I think everyone can relate. Like it's just so hard. Like it is so hard. This is why not a lot of people do it, but like to launch a business. And I had been a part of an early stage startup, before, and I knew like how hard it was, but I still didn't know. Cause like, until you're the founder, you really don't know. And yeah, it's and there's so many highs and lows. It's like, you have like one thing that works, but then it doesn't work like a week later, or like, and you're just constantly like, you're so insecure and you feel stupid and you don't know and every day you're like, why am I doing this? But then when something happens that you can isolate, that you can control to a certain degree, like it's amazing how much less stressed you become in a way. Like you still have stresses, but it really is so powerful when you can like take control. I think what surprises a lot of people is just like the simplification of it. Like I think in a way it's the clarity that I've gotten from it. That's like, it doesn't have to be complicated. It's like really these like very particular factors that you're looking at. And it's like, I think a lot of people assume it's going to be really hard and really complicated. It's like, oh, I'm going to go take it's like I'm going to go take a course on coding, and you're just like assume that it's going to be like such a tough thing to climb. And like, it's going to be really, detailed and minute, but actually it's like a lot of it's really logical, not the coding thing, but your course. A lot of it's just like logic. It's like, it makes a lot of sense. And you're like, wow, I never thought of it that way. It makes you think in a very clear way. And it like creates a really like clear, understandable framework. And that's so valuable because I think agencies and consultants want you to think that it's complicated because it benefits them. They want you to think that it's like, oh, like it takes 4 weeks to whip up, to do creative, and we have to go through all the iterations, and we have to like really overthink and everything. And then we have to like launch all these different audiences and test and learn and all this money. And you're like, wait a minute. No, it's like, it can actually be simple. And when it's distilled down, and I think that you guys are, have done a great job at really like distilling down like what's important. When I talk to other founders, like they're always amazed. Like when I have a suggestion, like, have you thought of doing this? And they're like, oh, wait, no, like that makes total sense. And I'm like, yeah, this is something probably I wouldn't have thought of a year ago because I was overcomplicating everything. But actually, like it gives you, I think that clarity is a permanent thing. To your point, it's like, it's not just like, oh, I have clarity now on how to write good copy. It's like, no, I have clarity on like what is a proper sales funnel, and that it can just be really simple. And like that is translated to other parts of how I think about the business, and other factors that contribute to our success. Like, looking at margins and looking at like all the economics of it and being like, hey, well, if we just increase that and decrease that and, tweak that, like we can actually, there's a lot more power. You have a lot more power than you think, I think is like also the lesson too.